Welcome to the Venari podcast. My name's Tom Woods, and today we'll be talking about all things digital transformation. Today, I'll be speaking with Joel Goldberg. Joel has held C-level positions and head of positions for Nike, DHL, and G4S, and he's currently the Chief Digital Officer for Wizz Air. Joel, welcome. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks, Tom.
No worries. Good to see you. And so I want to start really with digital transformation strategy, really around what are the key strategies for you to implement? How can they be applied across different industries you've worked with? And in particular versus established teams, maybe like Nike or maybe sort of more greenfield teams that you have now at Wizz Air?
I think having worked with different companies across different industries, there's certainly not a playbook to come in and implement. But I certainly think there are some key principles that I certainly keep in mind. I think the most important one, is understanding really the business drivers, the business context, and really understanding where you can create value. I think that's really where it starts. And maybe it sounds a bit obvious, but it's one of those things that's easy to say. It's not always so easy to do. But I think understanding, what underpins the business and where the leverage is usually the first place to start thinking about digital transformation. Because ultimately, it's not about technology for technology's sake. It's about implementing technology that's going to help drive business results. So that's the first thing. I think that the next follow-on is really to think about how to align teams and resources and priorities to those key objectives, because there's always 1,000 things that you can do. Every company I've worked for has tons of great ideas. There's no shortage of great ideas. Discipline, and I think the challenge is really around how you ensure that you put 80% of your focus on those big 4 or 5 things that are going to drive ultimately the ROI and the business value for that particular company.
Yeah, and how do you best get to the heart of those 4 or 5 drivers?
Yeah, I think it's going to sound like simple things, but they're simple things that that are not always easy to do. I would say first, one, talking with the people in the business that understand the business, right? And I've worked in different industries, have come into new companies and new industries. I think it's those relationships you have with the senior leadership and the next level down that really understand, kind of have the bigger picture, is where I would start, really. And when I said when we were going through COVID here at Wizz Air, we reestablished the digital strategy. What I did was I basically set a set of questions to all of our executive team to think about, we're in the future, what, and where we've been successful, right, in overtaking certain objectives. Digital's been a part of that. What did we do, right? So get people thinking forward. Different companies have different ways of doing that, but I think that's really been key. And then to understand and synthesize that, put it together, that's been some of the techniques I've used.
Yeah. And in terms of maybe some of the other side, then obviously there's getting stakeholders on board. The next part, I guess, is kind of building out your team and the people that are under you. Can you share maybe your approach to hiring and to team building, fostering that collaboration, especially, again, you referenced COVID there, how maybe that has changed things for you and your approach to building, if it has at all?
Yeah, it's probably less for me about COVID. Certainly that was a challenging time to go through as a new person in the aviation industry. I don't think it's changed my approach to hiring. I really, it starts with people for me. I think teams are how all work gets done. Yeah. Any great ambition starts with the people. So that's something I'm quite passionate about. What I've learned, though, probably moving from different companies, I think what I learned at Wizz Air is a couple of really, at the senior level, at my leadership team level, digital leadership level, I think having a couple people, they're the multipliers, the leadership, right? So getting those hires right is absolutely critical, because if you get those right, it's like a 10-fold multiplier down into the organization. And I'm really proud and have worked hard to get the right people in place. But the other thing I learned was on the other side as well. I think sometimes it's more about mindset and attitude and willingness to learn. I don't need a team of really experienced people. So actually getting some people that are young, ambitious, want to learn, want to build their career, getting that balance right, I think is really important. And we've been able to do a lot more than I think teams that are probably twice our size in over the past few years, just because we have people that are hungry and they want to build that career, and they're all in.
Yeah, it's about getting that balance, I think, absolutely. Between that leadership and the force multipliers that you mentioned, and then people that actually want to drive that and learn from them. So that makes sense. And then how do you build in kind of, I know you were talking at the top about product-led teams and sort of those business priorities. How do you build that product-led mindset, if you like, into teams to achieve those business outcomes?
I'm a big believer in this idea of product-led thinking, right? And for me, it all starts with really understanding the drivers, the business outcomes you're trying to achieve, and really, rather than thinking, okay, I've got to implement a system, getting the teams to work together, try to say, okay, how are we going to achieve that objective? It takes time. It's like, I think the analogy I would use is a bit like a garden, right? I mean, I think you have to think about teams and identity and product led. These things take time. Training helps, of course, getting people that have some experience that can coach people. We've also used some external coaching as well, come in and help us. But a lot of it, I think people have to work through it, experience it, and then I think you have to look for those behaviors when people are exhibiting that mindset. You got to reward, you got to recognize that, right? And then when you also see other behaviors where people are thinking maybe more like a service provider and you want them to step up a little bit and be more of a partner, it's also kind of recognizing those negative behaviors and then coaching through that, right? And coaching through the leadership and my leadership team and making sure we're all saying the same thing. I mean, simple things like identifying and working with team on what's our identity, what's important to us, what behaviors do we expect from one another. I think those things are really important. And then we actually have a nice cadence of a quarterly planning and ensuring that we are clear on the goals and identifying those, writing them down, having the transparency across teams. Those things I think help as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've come out of kind of the great resignation kind of period now, but that focus on teams and making sure that you're looking at negative behaviors is really interesting, because it's a bit more of a fine line. It sounds like what you're saying is the approach to that is consistency, and consistency in what you expect, but how you deal and treat people as well.
Couldn't agree more. I think maybe what did change in COVID, and I think especially at Wizz Air, we don't apologize on the fact that we have some very definitive things that we expect in people in our culture and at the corporate level. We expect people to be primarily in the office, right? Still, we're not one of those super work from home companies because culture is really important to us. And I think being a really lean team and focused on efficiency, we believe we're going to be more effective when people are working together, shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
Finding those people during COVID gets harder, but I think this is where we were unwilling to bend on those what we thought was important, and it takes longer sometimes to find those people. But I think finding 3 people that really have the right mindset, the right attitude, is going to have more of an impact than hiring 10 people that maybe aren't aligned to what you're looking for.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And looking ahead, looking to the future, I know we talked a lot about the past, but what do you think are the important sort of maybe trends moving forward? But how will you stay ahead of the curve as everything moves forward?
Look, I think technology, I've been in technology for a long time, right? And I won't tell you exactly how long, but I'll say it's over 25 years. Technology changes fast. It's not like some other, and I like that. I think people that are in it for a long time, that you enjoy that. So there's going to be new trends, whatever we would talk. Of course, machine learning, generative AI. There's lots of buzzwords and lots of not just buzzwords, but really important trends to top of. I think what is consistent though is the getting the people in that mindset of continuous improvements into the team, and getting the people that want to learn, that want to have that kind of learning organization, learning team, that want to take time to do retrospective, see where we went wrong, create a culture where it's not about blame, but it's about improvement. I think those things are really important and aren't going to change. I think more and more, though, if I look at trends, one of the things certainly at Wizz Air that we look at is I believe that outsourcing all undifferentiated technology is the way of the future. I think there's so much utility technology, commodity technology these days, and you can look at the cloud and how it's evolved over the last 10 years and say, why would you try to do these things on your own, right? And I would say the same thing. There's just a lot of things that I don't want to have to focus on because other people have already cracked it and already do it better, or it's not critical for us to be in, in the case of Wizz Air, the world's best, ultra low cost airline.
Yeah.
I want my team focused on the few things that are going to differentiate us from the competition, which means that we need to leave the other things to other people. And outsourcing might just mean using technology that is commercial, off-the-shelf technology, or cloud technology, right, where it might be Microsoft, AWS, or Google, who's already figured this out. Let's leverage those things. Engineers love to build stuff, so it's kind of one of those things that you have to stay on top of. But I think if you're product-led and you're focused on customer value, and you can get the teams to really differentiate between what's value creating and differentiating and what's just sort of commodity, I think those are going to be two things that I don't think are going to change.
Oh, fantastic. And as an outsourcer myself, I wholeheartedly endorse that message. So with that, we have to finish, but yeah, thank you very much for your time, Joel.
My pleasure. Thank you, Tom.